Hello, and welcome back to Veil Noir. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy drifting into dark, chilling tales veiled in noir, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare. Relax your mind. Let the outside world fade away. And let's begin. Story 1, I hate to say it, but I think she was right. We were getting stagnant. That was the word she used one night while we were lying in bed together, both of us facing the ceiling, neither of us touching. The room was dark except for the thin line of streetlight coming through the curtains. I remember the fan turning slowly above us, clicking once every few seconds like it was counting down to something. "We're stagnant," she said. At the time, I hated the word. It sounded cold, clinical, like something a doctor might say about water left in a ditch too long. It made our marriage feel dirty somehow, like something that had once been alive but had stopped moving and begun to rot. But she was right. For the last year or so, our bedroom had become as dead as a doornail. Nothing excited her anymore. I tried not to take it personally at first. We were older now. We had been together since high school, and people change. Bodies change. Work drains you. Stress follows you home and sits between you on the mattress. Bills, family problems, health scares, arguments about nothing. Long silences after dinner, all of it piles up. I told myself it was normal. I told myself she still loved me. And I believe she did. That was what made it harder. If she had hated me, it would have been clean. If she had been cruel, distant, or unfaithful, I could have turned my hurt into anger. But she was still kind in all the ordinary ways. She still asked how my day was. She still bought the cereal I liked. She still touched my shoulder when passing behind me in the kitchen. She still sent me little messages from the grocery store asking if we needed coffee. But at night, when the lights went off, something in her closed. She would lie beside me, still and polite, as if her own body were a room she no longer wanted to enter. Being the gentleman I believed myself to be, I never wanted to guilt her. I did not want her to feel pressured into anything she did not want, so I stayed quiet. Every night I rolled onto my side and pretended I was tired. I pretended I did not feel rejected. I pretended the empty space between us was not growing wider. But a person can only pretend for so long. Desire is not always gentle. Sometimes it feels less like a want and more like hunger, not only for the body, but for proof. Proof that you are still wanted. Proof that someone still looks at you and feels something. Proof that the person sleeping next to you has not quietly left you behind while still sharing your address, your bed, and your last name. I tried to explain that to her one evening. I did not say it well. I was embarrassed and hurt, and those two things always make a man sound worse than he means to. I told her I missed her. I told her I missed us. I told her I needed to feel close to her again. I said it would help if she could just try sometimes. Not force herself. Not fake everything. Just try. "To at least pretend?" she asked. The way she said it should have stopped me, but I was too deep inside my own ache. "I don't mean pretend," I said, though I think we both knew I did. To her credit, she tried. That almost made it worse. She would turn toward me at night and make an effort. She would touch me, kiss me, whisper the kinds of things she used to say naturally when we were young and reckless and too in love to care who heard us through thin apartment walls. But I could see through it. Her eyes gave her away every time. They were not cruel. They were not disgusted. They were simply absent, like she had left some essential part of herself somewhere else and sent only her hands and mouth back to me out of duty. I always ended up stopping her. I would take her wrists gently and say, "It's okay." She would pull away. relieved and guilty. Then we would lie in silence. Those nights hurt more than the nights where nothing happened at all. At least silence could be explained. Tiredness, stress, age, but seeing her try and fail to want me made me feel like I was standing beside the grave of something that had not been buried properly. I missed the woman who was lying right next to me. After a handful of those awful attempts, I decided we needed a new solution. We were not the same people we had been in high school. Back then, everything had been easy because everything was new. A hand brushing a hand could set us both on fire. A glance across a room could make the whole day feel charged. We had been young and stupid and convinced that wanting each other would never take effort. But time changes the shape of people. Maybe her preferences had changed. Maybe mine had too. Maybe we needed novelty, excitement, something unexpected to wake up the part of her that had gone quiet. So I started reading. I am not proud of that part. Not because there is anything wrong with people having private interests, but because I approached it like a man trying to fix a machine. I searched forums, articles, advice columns, anything that promised to bring excitement back into a marriage. I made lists in my head. I imagined conversations. I tried to choose things that seemed harmless enough, things that might feel playful instead of desperate. Each attempt failed. Some made her laugh awkwardly. Some made her frown. Some made me so embarrassed that I could barely look at her afterward. It was bad enough to put myself out there in ways that felt unfamiliar and vulnerable. To be rejected while doing so felt like being peeled open. Then, one night, I tried something different. It came from the rougher side of things, the kind of thing people talk about with rules and trust and safe words. I did not think she would like it. Honestly, I almost did not bring it up. But I had reached the point where embarrassment felt smaller than loneliness. I told her she could hit me. Not hard enough to seriously injure me, I said at first. Just enough to make things feel different. Enough to surprise us. Enough to put some danger back into the room without crossing into actual danger. She stared at me for a long moment. Then something changed in her face. Her eyes lit up. Not politely, not out of pity. They genuinely brightened. That should have scared me. Instead, it filled me with relief. The first time she hit me, it was in the stomach. Harder than I expected. The air left my lungs in a rough grunt, and I folded forward, more shocked than hurt. I looked up at her, and she was smiling. Not the tired smile she wore when trying to make me feel better. A real one. Alive. She hit me again. Pain bloomed through my abdomen, hot and sharp. I winced, and her smile widened. Her cheeks flushed. Her breathing changed. For the first time in months, maybe longer, she was fully there with me. Her eyes did not look absent. They did not drift toward the ceiling or close in resignation. They watched me. They wanted something. And because I was foolish and starving to be wanted, I gave it to her. We made it through the whole night together. In the morning, I woke sore but happy. That is the truth, ugly as it is. My stomach hurt when I sat up. There were dark bruises forming under my ribs. But my wife walked into the bedroom with coffee, wearing one of my old shirts, and she had a glow about her I had not seen in years. She looked younger, not in her face exactly, but in the way she moved. Lighter, brighter, like some locked room inside her had opened. I felt proud. That sounds insane now, but I did. I thought I had finally found a way back to her. I thought I had satisfied something she needed. I thought maybe the problem had never been me. Maybe it had just been boredom. And now we had discovered a door. The next night, when the lights went out, I felt her shift beside me. My heart beat faster. She leaned over and kissed my cheek. I want to try again, she whispered. I almost cried from gratitude. Then I felt cold metal against my skin. She had slipped something over her fingers. I turned my head. Even in the dark, I could see the shape of them. Brass knuckles. For 1 second, fear cut through the excitement. Isn't that a bit much? I asked. She did not answer right away. Instead, she touched my face gently with her bare hand. You trust me, don't you? That question trapped me. Because if I said no, I would ruin the first real spark we had found in years. If I said no, I would be the one closing the door. If I said no, maybe she would go back to that distant, polite version of herself forever. So I said yes. The first blow landed low against my side. Pain flashed through me so brightly that I bit down on the blanket to keep from crying out. She froze, waiting to see whether I would stop her. I should have. Instead, I nodded. She hit me again, and again. By the time she was done, my stomach and chest felt like one large wound. I could barely breathe without pain. But she was glowing, truly glowing. She held me afterward, brushing sweat from my forehead, whispering that I had done so well. I slept in her arms like a man rescued from drowning. The next morning, my torso was black and blue. Deep bruises spread across my skin like storm clouds. Some were almost purple. Some had already begun to yellow at the edges. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and touched them carefully, hissing through my teeth. Then she appeared behind me. She wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her chin on my shoulder, and looked at my bruises in the mirror. Her eyes were bright. You're beautiful, she said. No one had said anything like that to me in years. I believed her. That was the beginning of the real trouble. Because after that, pain became the language between us. At first, I told myself we still had control. I told myself it was strange, but harmless. I told myself couples did far stranger things behind closed doors. I told myself that as long as it brought her back to me, I could endure it. But her appetite grew quickly. A slap became a punch. A punch became metal. Metal became choking. The first time her hands closed around my throat, there was no warning. She had been tender at first that night, almost sweet. She kissed me with a hunger I had not felt from her in decades. She touched my face, my shoulders, my chest. I felt wanted. I felt chosen. Then her hands slid to my neck. At first it was light, then tighter and tighter. My breath caught. I tried to say her name, but no sound came out. Her face hovered above mine, soft and focused. She looked fascinated, almost peaceful, watching the panic rise in my eyes. My lungs burned, my face throbbed, the room darkened at the edges. Just before I lost consciousness, she let go. Air rushed back into me, and I coughed violently. She held my face and kissed my forehead. Shh, she whispered. You're okay. You're okay. Her voice was so gentle that I believed her again. I told myself she knew when to stop. Then I felt something sharp press against my side. My body went still. What is that? I whispered. She smiled. Just a little more. The blade entered slowly. Pain bloomed deep and cold. I gasped, but she kissed my forehead again, soothing me as if she were comforting a child after a nightmare. Warm wetness spread beneath me. My heart raced. My hands clawed at the sheets. But her face, God help me, her face. She looked alive, more alive than I had seen her since we were in our 20s. Her eyes shone. Her breath shook. She whispered things into my ear that I had waited years to hear. I don't remember much after that. I think I passed out. When I woke up, sunlight was coming through the curtains. For one beautiful second, I thought I had dreamed the worst of it. Then I tried to move. Pain tore through my side. I looked down and saw a bandage wrapped around my torso. It was neatly done. Too neatly, almost there was a breakfast tray on my lap. Toast, eggs, coffee, a small glass of orange juice, a white rose in a narrow vase. My wife sat beside me, watching. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Terrible," I said. She looked hurt, so I quickly added, "But happy." Her smile returned. I meant it in a way. I was living in a strange kind of bliss. My body hurt everywhere, but she had made me breakfast in bed. She had stayed. She had cared for the wound. She had looked at me all morning as if I mattered more than anything in the world. Then I saw my chest. At first, I thought the red marks were scratches. I pulled the blanket lower. Her name had been carved into my skin. Not deeply enough to kill me. Not carelessly. The letters were slow, deliberate, and uneven only because skin is not paper. Her name sat across my chest like a signature. A claim. I should have screamed. I should have thrown the tray aside, called the police, run from the house, done anything a sane man would do. Instead, I touched the letters with shaking fingers. She watched me carefully. "I wanted you to know," she said. "Know what? That you're mine." Something inside me broke open. I had spent so long feeling unwanted that ownership felt like love. Tears filled my eyes. She leaned forward and kissed the carved letters, one by one. After that, things became easier to accept. That is the most frightening part. The first terrible thing is always the hardest. The second feels like proof you survived the first. The third becomes a pattern. Then, before you understand what has happened, the pattern becomes your life. I wore long sleeves and high collars. I avoided swimming pools. I stopped changing at the gym. I told coworkers I had fallen down the stairs when I limped. I told neighbors I had been clumsy when they saw bruises near my jaw. My wife became radiant. She cooked again. She sang in the kitchen. She touched me when passing behind me, but now her fingers lingered over tender places. Places only she knew hurt. Sometimes she pressed gently against a bruise while smiling at me over her shoulder. It became our secret. I began to look forward to night and fear it at the same time. That combination was addictive. Anticipation and dread. Love and pain. Her attention and the cost of receiving it. Every evening I watched her hands and wondered what she had planned. Every morning I woke relieved to be alive and ashamed of my relief. Then came the hacksaw. She showed it to me after dinner. We had eaten quietly. Pasta, salad, a bottle of wine. She had lit candles even though it was only Wednesday. She looked beautiful in the candlelight, older than the girl I had fallen in love with, but more powerful somehow, more certain. After clearing the plates, she came back from the garage with something hidden behind her back. I laughed nervously. "What's that?" She leaned close and licked the tip of my nose, playful as a cat. Then she showed me. The hacksaw's thin blade caught the candlelight. My stomach dropped. "No," I said. The word left me before I could dress it up as teasing. Her smile faded. The room changed immediately. Not visibly. The candles still burned. The dishes still sat in the sink. The clock still ticked on the wall. But the warmth drained out of everything. "No?" she repeated. I swallowed. "I just mean, maybe not that." She looked down at the saw, then back at me. "I thought you wanted me to want you. I do. I thought you wanted to make me happy. I do. Then why are you pulling away?" I had no answer that did not sound like betrayal. She sat beside me and placed the hacksaw gently on the table between us. "I finally feel close to you again," she said softly. "For years you wanted me to pretend. Now I don't have to pretend. And you're afraid of me." Her eyes filled with tears. That hurt worse than any punch. I reached for her hand. "I'm not afraid of you," I lied. She turned her palm upward and laced her fingers through mine. Then prove it. Now I am lying in bed, writing this while she gets ready in the bathroom. I can hear drawers opening and closing, metal touching porcelain, water running. She is humming to herself. My chest hurts where her name is carved. My side still aches beneath the bandage. My ribs feel wrong when I breathe too deeply. One of my fingers will not bend all the way anymore, and I do not remember when that happened. But she smiled at me today. She kissed me like she meant it. She called me beautiful. Part of me knows this is not love anymore, if it ever was. Part of me knows I have turned loneliness into a leash and handed her the other end. Part of me knows that if I do not leave this house tonight, I may never leave it at all. But then I hear her humming stop. The bathroom door opens. She steps into the bedroom with the hacksaw in one hand and that old light in her eyes. The light I spent years trying to bring back. And God forgive me, I still want to be wanted, more than I want to survive. Story 2. As I climb, I realize it is probably already too late for me. I do not know how long I have been inside this tower. My body tells me it has been 20 minutes. My aching legs say an hour. My dry mouth says longer. But my mind knows the truth. It has been much longer. I know because I can no longer see the ground. That should be impossible. When I first stepped inside, the tower did not look tall. That was the trap. From the outside, it looked like an old stone spire, standing alone in a field, narrow and forgotten, maybe 3 stories high at most. A strange little thing, yes, but not monstrous, not endless, not a prison disguised as a landmark. I had been walking through the countryside for most of the afternoon, following no path in particular. I had gone there to clear my head, to escape the noise of work, bills, people, and the stale rhythm of my everyday life. I remember seeing the tower between the trees, a thin gray shape against the sky. It seemed out of place, too old for the surrounding fields, too cleanly built to be a ruin, and yet too abandoned to belong to anyone. Curiosity pulled me toward it. That was my mistake. The doorway at the base was open. No lock, no warning sign, no fence, just a dark opening and a narrow spiral staircase curling upward inside. I looked in and told myself I would only climb a little way, just enough to see the view, just enough to satisfy the question. That is what curiosity does. It never asks for your whole life at first. It asks for one step, then another, then another. By the time you understand what it has taken from you, you are too far from the door to turn back. I climbed for what felt like a few minutes before I realized something was wrong. The staircase did not widen. It did not change. It simply coiled upward, tight and steep, pressed between rough stone walls that seemed too close to my shoulders. The air smelled dry and old, like dust and minerals. My footsteps echoed strangely, not downward behind me, but upward ahead, as if something above was already copying my movement. After a while, I turned to go back down. That was when the sickness came. The moment I faced downward, the whole tower shifted around me. The steps warped, the walls stretched. My vision bent as if I were looking through thick glass. A wave of nausea punched through my stomach, so sharp I nearly fell. For one awful second, I could not tell which way was up. The staircase became a corkscrew of stone, twisting into itself, spinning around me. I dropped to my knees and closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was facing upward again. The sickness eased. I tried once more to look down. Pain shot through my skull. My sight turned white at the edges. My ears filled with a high, insect-like whine. I had to grab the wall to keep from collapsing. That was when I understood. The spire wanted me to keep going up. so I obeyed. I scaled. There are only a few windows in the tower, thin, vertical slits, barely wide enough to fit an arm through. At first, I used them to mark my progress. Through the first, I saw the field outside, green and ordinary, with my own shadow stretched long across the grass. Through the next, I saw the tops of low bushes. Through another, I saw the field from higher up than I expected. Now when I look out, there is only cloudy haze. Maybe the tops of trees. At least I think they are trees. They look wrong from here. Too thin, too still, like dark brushstrokes standing upright in pale fog. I press my face close to the stone and try to see more, but the world below refuses to make sense. There is no field anymore, no road, no familiar shape, just drifting whiteness, and the hint of something far beneath me. This is the last time I let curiosity take hold of me. If I ever get the chance to be curious again. The paintings started appearing a while ago. I do not know how long ago. Time is sick inside this place. It stretches and snaps and folds back on itself. My watch stopped at some point. My phone died even though it had more than half its battery when I entered. Hunger comes and goes in waves. Sometimes I feel starving. Sometimes I feel as if I have not had a body for hours. The first painting was small. It hung on the wall beside the staircase, framed in dark wood. I nearly passed it without noticing because the stone had been empty for so long that my mind did not expect decoration. It was an oil painting of a field, a simple field under a gray sky, bordered by woods in the distance. The brushwork was beautiful, too beautiful. Every blade of grass seemed alive. Every cloud carried weight. The trees at the far edge of the field were dark and close together, forming a wall of shadow. I stopped to look. That was another mistake. The painting felt familiar, not like a place I had been, but like a place I had dreamed. The field looked peaceful at first, but the more I stared, the more I felt something waiting at the tree line. I forced myself to move on. A few turns later, another painting appeared. The same field, the same woods, but the perspective was closer. Then another, closer still. The paintings were not physically connected, but together they formed a kind of panorama, or maybe a sequence. Each one brought the viewer nearer to the woods. At first, the trees were a distant border. Then they became the main subject. Then their trunks filled most of the canvas, dark and vertical, like prison bars. I did not want to keep looking, but I looked every time. The paintings demanded it. One showed the ground just before the forest. Mud, grass, fallen leaves, and something dark soaking into the soil. Blood. The next showed a body. It lay twisted at the edge of the trees, mangled beyond recognition. I could not tell if it had been male or female. I could barely tell if it had been human. Limbs bent wrong, the torso torn open, the head turned away, or perhaps missing altogether. The brushstrokes were rich and thick, every streak of red layered with black and brown. It was horrifying. It was also beautiful. That is what scared me most. The artist had made ruin look holy. I wanted to stay and study it. I wanted to understand how the paint seemed wet, even though the surface was dry. I wanted to know why the body felt familiar, why some part of me thought I should recognize the shape of its hand, but the tower pulled upward, so I left it behind. Still, I scale. Hours pass, maybe days. My legs burn, my knees throb, my hands are scraped from gripping the walls. The staircase remains narrow, always curling upward, always the same number of steps until it is not. Sometimes I count them between windows and get 33, sometimes 112. Once I counted 7, then looked back and saw the steps behind me stretching down farther than the eye could follow. I stopped counting after that. The paintings changed. The field and trees became stranger. The perspective entered the woods, and the woods were not natural. The trunks leaned in impossible directions. Branches twisted like fingers. The ground seemed soft, almost breathing. In some paintings, pale figures hung among the trees. People, naked bodies strung up by ropes, vines, or something that might have been living cord. Some were clean and untouched, suspended with their heads bowed as if asleep. Others were covered in deep gashes. Cuts opened them from shoulder to hip. Some wounds were so severe that the bodies seemed nearly severed into pieces, held together only by strands of flesh. One painting showed a row of bodies hanging so high in the branches that their feet pointed toward the sky instead of the ground. Another showed a woman folded backward over a fallen log, her spine arched in a way no living body could survive. Her face was turned toward the viewer, but her eyes were painted over with gold. Another showed a child standing alone among the hanging bodies, untouched, facing away from me toward a deeper part of the forest. I passed it quickly, too quickly, because for 1 second I thought the child turned its head. The paintings became more abstract the higher I climbed. The careful fields and woods dissolved into swirls of color. Thick strokes of green, black, red, white, and yellow spiraled together. Sometimes I saw faces inside them. Sometimes hands. Sometimes a suggestion of antlers, teeth, eyes, wings. Something was being shown to me, but the meaning refused to settle. It was like watching a memory rot. Still, I scale. At some point, I realized I had been writing. I carry a small notepad in my jacket pocket. I used to keep it for ideas, little observations, phrases I liked, reminders I would otherwise forget. Now it has become my only companion, my only witness, my only proof that I was ever here as myself. I write when I can, though the tower does not leave much room for a writer's hand or mind. My thoughts come wild and broken. Sometimes I look back at what I wrote and do not remember writing it. Sometimes the words are not mine. Once I found a sentence written across the top of a page in handwriting too elegant to be my own. The higher you climb, the more you resemble your purpose. I tore the page out and let it fall through one of the windows. It did not fall. The wind took it upward. That was when I stopped using the windows for comfort. I do not sleep properly. I only lose time. One moment I am climbing. The next, my face is pressed against cold stone and my mouth is full of dust. Then I rise and continue because there is nothing else to do. The hunger no longer bothers me. Thirst no longer feels urgent. Pain has become a kind of background music. The tower is teaching me how to endure it. I hate that. I hate that I am getting better at this. 24 hours passed. Then, more. I cannot be sure. I only know the staircase kept going, and I kept going with it. Every footstep made me feel closer to something. The top, maybe, or the heart. Or the reason the tower had been waiting for someone curious enough to enter. Then, after days of stone, paintings, nausea, and impossible height, I reached a landing. A real landing. The staircase opened suddenly into a wide circular space, and I nearly fell from the shock of it. I had been pressed so long against the narrow spiral wall that open space felt unnatural. My body had become used to confinement. The sudden room around me was almost frightening, like stepping out of a coffin into a desert. The chamber was large enough that my footsteps no longer echoed upward. Instead, they spread across the floor and returned from all sides. At the far end stood a door, a grand door. burgundy in color, tall and narrow, with a surface that looked like velvet stretched over wood. It was spotless. That alone made it feel obscene. Everything else in the tower was dusty, cracked, ancient, and worn by time, but the door looked untouched. Soft, rich, waiting above, it hung the final painting. I knew it was final the moment I saw it. It was larger than the others, almost as wide as the wall. The frame was black, carved with shapes I could not look at directly. The painting showed a figure seated against a storm-colored background. The face was blotted out by a twisting spiral of black, white, and gray. Not shadow, not paint exactly. A whirlpool where the face should have been. Looking at it made my stomach twist with the same sickness I felt when I tried to turn back. Below the ruined face, the body was beautiful. Not human beautiful, divine beautiful. The form had the softness and grace of Venus, pale and luminous, every curve painted with impossible tenderness. But there was something else, too. A terrible weight. An imposing, ancient air like Saturn devouring his children in the dark. Beauty, yes, but not kind beauty. Not welcoming beauty. Predatory beauty. A god that knew it was adored and hated the weakness of worshippers. I stood beneath the painting for a long time. The notepad shook in my hand. This small pad of paper has been my only acquaintance during the journey. It has held my feral thoughts, my findings, my warnings, and what remains of my sanity. I wish I had written more. I wish I had described every painting in detail. I wish I had counted every window, every turn, every impossible change. But being coerced by a never-ending obelisk does not leave much space for art. Or reason. Near the door, there is a window, wider than the others, large enough for a person to climb through if they were desperate enough. I approached it with hope so sharp it hurt. Outside was not the haze I expected. I could see down, far down. The world lay beneath me in a pale, distant spread. Fields, trees, maybe roads, maybe rooftops, all flattened by height. My backpack was still on my shoulders. I do not know why I had kept carrying it. Habit, maybe. Some stupid human need to hold on to belongings when everything else is gone. I took it off. I held it out through the window. Then I dropped it. I waited, and waited, and waited. The silence stretched so long that I began to laugh. Then I heard it hit the ground. The sound was small. Final, real, my heart sank. Freedom is out that window. I know it now. The tower has taken me high, but not beyond the world. I could climb through. I could jump. I could end the climb. I could choose the ground, even if the ground chose to break me. But I also know I cannot. The tower is a cruel jester. It shows escape only when escape has become another form of death. I stepped back from the window and looked again at the burgundy door. The velvet surface seems to breathe. No, not seems. It breathes. The painting above it has changed since I first saw it. The figure's body remains still, but the spiral where its face should be has widened. The black and white turn slowly, folding into each other. When I stare too long, I feel something staring back. I think the god behind the door is not painted. I think the painting is a window. I think all the paintings were windows. And I think the bloody body in the first field was not the first victim. It was the first version of me that tried to turn back. There are sounds behind the velvet door now, soft ones. A forest moving in no wind, ropes creaking, wet brushstrokes across canvas, something breathing through a mouth that does not exist. I am writing this as my final warning. Let this small pad of paper be found by someone who still has the chance I wasted. Do not climb this tower. Do not enter because the door is open. Do not trust a structure that looks too small to be dangerous. Do not think curiosity is harmless. When you see the little gray spire standing alone in the field, turn away. Walk back the way you came. Do not look at the windows. Do not wonder about the view from the top. Do not let your mind ask what could be inside. You have the opportunity not to see the painted god above the plush door. Take it. Run from the tower while the ground is still beneath you. As for me, the velour passage awaits. My hand is on the door now. It is warm. I can feel a pulse beneath the velvet. The staircase behind me has disappeared. The window is gone. The painting is smiling, without a face. Still, I scale. Story 3. I was never the kind of man who flinched at stories about haunted houses, cursed land, or things that moved in the dark. I grew up in West Virginia, where old stories were as common as broken fences and rusted tools left behind in barns. Every family had one. A dead miner who still walked the ridge, a woman in white by the creek, a thing that screamed from the trees when the fog rolled low. I had heard them all since I was a boy, usually whispered by drunk uncles around bonfires, or told by old women who crossed themselves before saying too much. I never believed any of it. To me, the ancient forests around our home hid nothing worse than hungry bears, coyotes, snakes, and the occasional drifter running from the law. The woods could kill you, yes, but not because they were evil. They killed through cold, hunger, bad footing, bad luck, and the stupidity of men who thought they knew better. I was one of those men. That was why I went looking for the Well of Bones. The name had followed my family for as long as I could remember. It sat behind the ruins of my grandfather's farm, far past the collapsed barn and the blackened posts where the smokehouse used to stand. The farm had been abandoned since the 70s, left to rot after my grandfather walked away from it, and never returned except in bad dreams. When I was young, he warned me never to go near the well. He didn't say it like a man trying to scare a child for fun. He said it with his eyes fixed on the floor, his voice low and heavy. One hand wrapped around the old iron pendant he always wore beneath his shirt. I asked him once why it was called the Well of Bones. He slapped me, not hard enough to injure me, but hard enough that I never asked again. Years passed. He died. The farm continued to decay. The stories became less like warnings and more like family legend, the kind of thing people mention at reunions after too much beer. The cursed well, the forbidden hollow. The place Granddad said had a door underneath it. A door to what? Nobody knew. Or nobody wanted to say. That night, driven by a curiosity I now know was cursed from the beginning, I decided to challenge the story for myself. The sun was already low when I entered the trees behind the old farm. It was not fully dark yet, but the forest seemed to swallow the evening faster than it should have. The air was heavy and still, thick in my lungs. It felt less like air and more like something wet pressing against my face. The deeper I walked, the harder it became to breathe. The old farm disappeared behind me. First the house, then the fence line, then the last leaning post near the goat pen. After that, there were only trees. The place smelled of moss, damp bark, and soil. At least it did at first. Farther in, another scent crept through the woods. Something sour. Something old. A smell like water trapped in a cellar for years, mixed with dead leaves and meat gone soft in the heat. I told myself it was an animal carcass. There was always an explanation. Then, my wristwatch began to spin backward. I noticed it only because of the sound. A sharp, metallic screech cut through the silence, thin and painful, like tiny gears grinding themselves apart. I lifted my wrist and watched the hands of my watch whip backward in frantic circles. The minute hand blurred. The hour hand jerked and trembled. The second hand spun so fast it looked like a silver ring. I stopped walking. For a moment, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The watch groaned louder, as if time itself was refusing to let me go any farther. I should have turned back then. I know that now. Instead, I laughed once, a dry little sound that did not belong in that place, and I kept walking. The sound of the watch faded after a few more steps, but the hands did not stop spinning. They continued their backward race beneath the glass, marking no time, I understood. By the time I reached the clearing, the last light had gone from the sky. The well stood in the center like a wound in the earth. It was made of old stone, half sunk into the ground and covered in moss, so dark it looked almost black. The circular opening was wide enough for a grown man to fall into without touching the sides. Around it, the grass had died in a perfect ring. No weeds grew there. No roots crossed it. No insects moved over the stones. There was no wind. No leaves rustled. No owls called. The silence was complete. Then I heard breathing. It came from inside the well. Heavy, wet, rhythmic. The sound rose from below in slow, swollen pulls, as if the earth itself had lungs and those lungs were full of rot. Each exhale carried a smell so foul that my stomach tightened. It was not like ordinary decay. I had smelled dead animals before. I had smelled spoiled meat and old blood. This was worse. Sulfur, mold, human flesh left to soften in a place without sun. I stood at the edge of the clearing, every part of me screaming to leave. My skin prickled. My mouth dried. My legs felt weak. Something deep in my body understood what my mind still refused to accept. This place was wrong, not dangerous, not haunted in the playful way people use the word. Wrong, still. Something pulled me closer. I do not mean that as a figure of speech. I felt it, a pressure under my ribs and behind my eyes, tugging me toward the well. It was not forceful enough to drag me, but it guided me, encouraged me, invited me. I stepped forward. Then again. The stone edge crumbled slightly under my boot when I reached it. I leaned over, my hand tight around the flashlight in my pocket. My other hand rose without thought to the iron pendant at my chest. It had belonged to my grandfather. My mother gave it to me after he died. She said he wore it every day and would have wanted me to have it. It was not beautiful. Just a dark piece of iron shaped into a rough oval and threaded onto a cord. Family rumor claimed it had been forged from metal that fell from the sky centuries ago. A piece of meteorite found in the valley before anyone in our family owned the land. I never believed that either. I clicked on my flashlight. The beam cut into the well. At first, I saw nothing. Not water, not stone, only darkness. Then, the darkness moved. It coiled and shifted like a mass of snakes turning over one another in a pit. I jerked back, nearly losing my balance, but forced myself to look again. The surface below settled for a moment, becoming flat and black, reflecting the flashlight beam back at me in a dim, oily shimmer. Then I saw my reflection, except it was not me. It had my face, my hair, my clothes, the same eyes, the same jaw, every detail close enough to make my mind twist around itself. But the thing in the reflection was peeling the skin from its own face with long fingernails. It pulled slowly, carefully, almost lovingly, stripping flesh away in wet ribbons. Its eyes had been gouged out. From the empty sockets came a faint red glow. I could not breathe. The thing lifted its ruined face toward me. Its torn lips began to move. When it spoke, the voice came from inside the stone, inside the trees, and inside my bones all at once. It sounded like dry bones grinding together beneath a heavy boot. You're very late, Ethan. My name. It knew my name. The table is set down below, it whispered, and you are the main course we have been waiting for. Cold sweat formed on my forehead. Then the sweat seemed to freeze. In that instant, I understood with perfect, horrifying clarity that I was no longer alone in the forest. I had never been alone. Whatever lived inside that well had noticed me long before I reached it. Maybe long before I was born. I tried to step back. My feet would not move. A cold unlike anything I had ever felt wrapped around my ankles. It did not simply chill my skin. It passed through my boots and sank into the bones beneath, gnawing at them like blades made of black ice. I looked down. The ground around the well had changed. The solid soil was gone. The roots, leaves, and grass had melted into a black, gelatinous substance, liquid like oil but thick like tar. It moved with terrible patience, rising around my boots. It did not splash or bubble. It swallowed. Slowly, deliberately, I opened my mouth to scream. No sound came out. My throat felt hollow, as if someone had scooped the voice from me and left only cold emptiness behind. I tried again, forcing air from my lungs, begging heaven, earth, anyone to hear me. What came out was a weak hiss, like a dying snake. The place had taken my right to cry for help. Below me, the darkness inside the well began to boil. There was no heat, no steam, no fire. Yet the black surface churned violently, rising faster and faster. It did not overflow like water. It shaped itself as it climbed, stretching upward in thick folds like dough made from the bodies of drowned souls. Then, the hands emerged, hundreds of them. Thin, pale, unnaturally long hands pushed from the blackness, fingers bending backward, nails clicking against the stone. Their arms stretched for impossible lengths, some several yards long, some longer still. Broken joints pressed against transparent skin. Green fluid dripped from them and hissed wherever it touched stone, eating little smoking holes into the rock. They reached for me. One thing lifted its head above the rest. It had no lower jaw, only a black void where the bottom half of its face should have been, leaking thick saliva. A split tongue slid from that darkness, long and wet, lashing like a whip as it licked the rim of the well and searched for flesh. I tried to pull my feet free. The tar around my boots tightened. Panic broke through whatever spell had frozen me. I bent down, grabbed a loose stone from near the edge of the well, and threw it at the rising hands with all the strength I had. The stone did not fall. The moment it passed over the mouth of the well, it stopped in midair. For one impossible second, it hung there, trembling. Then it spun. Faster, faster, it shot back at me. The stone struck my forehead with enough force to split the skin open. Pain flashed white across my vision. Blood poured down my face and splattered onto the ancient stones. That was when I understood. Gravity inside the circle of the well was not broken. It was reversed. The well was not pulling things down. It was pulling them up. I was not standing above an opening. I was standing beneath one. The well had become a black sky, and I was the ground it wanted to fall into. The hands came closer. Their bony nails clicked against the stones, a dry, frantic sound that filled my skull. Names appeared on their palms, scratched into the pale skin as if carved by invisible knives. Some names were old and faded. Some were fresh. Some were still bleeding. Then I saw my own name slowly forming on the palm of the closest hand. Ethan. The letters cut themselves into the flesh one by one. In that moment, he emerged. I do not know what else to call him. He, the thing that still visits me in nightmares. The thing that makes me wake up choking, clawing at my own chest. certain I can feel its hand inside me. He rose from the mouth of the well, but he was not a body in any normal sense. He was a mass of concentrated darkness, huge and shifting, without clear edges. Yet beneath that translucent black skin, thousands of tiny human faces moved and writhed. They pressed outward from inside him, opening and closing their mouths in silent screams. Some were old, some were young, some were barely more than children. Their eyes rolled, their cheeks stretched, their teeth clicked together behind the dark membrane of his body. He reached for me. His talons were like blades carved from ancient bone. They sank into my left shoulder. The cold of death entered me. Not the cold of winter. Not the cold of snow or ice or deep water. This was the cold of stopped blood, of graves, of breath that would never return. It spread through my veins like venom, freezing me from the inside. He began to pull. I slid toward the well. The tar released my boots, only because something stronger had claimed me. I tried to grab the ground, the stones, anything. My fingernails broke against the rock. The thing dragged me with slow, patient strength, as if savoring every inch. I looked down into the opening. There was no water, no bottom. Instead, I saw rooms. Endless rooms made of bones. Walls built from ribs. Floors paved with skulls. Doorways framed by femurs. In those rooms, thousands of people moved through an ocean of blackness and pain. Some were whole. Some were pieces. Some were only faces pressed into walls, still alive enough to scream. Their voices could not fully rise from the well, but I felt them. A muffled chorus of eternal agony. People nobody remembered. People nobody had heard die. People who had looked too long. People who had been called by name. The entity leaned closer. It had no eyes, only two black pits where eyes should have been. From those pits came a distant scream, so far away and yet so close that it seemed to echo from inside my own skull. I felt something inside me begin to lift. My soul. I know how that sounds, but there is no other word. Something was being pulled from between my ribs, drawn toward the well like metal to a magnet. Memories tore loose. My mother's face, my grandfather's voice, the smell of rain on the farm, my own name. All of it stretched toward the dark. Then, my trembling hand brushed the old iron pendant beneath my shirt. The moment my fingers closed around it, the thing holding me recoiled slightly. It was not much, but it was enough. I gripped the pendant hard enough that its edges cut into my palm. I remembered my grandfather's warnings. I remembered the fear in his eyes. I remembered the slap he gave me when I asked about the well of bones. At the time, I thought it was cruelty. Now I knew it had been terror. I screamed. This time, the sound did not come from my mouth. It came from somewhere deeper, from the core of whatever remained of me. I screamed every prayer I had ever heard, every holy word my grandmother whispered over meals, every Bible verse I half remembered, every plea, every curse, every desperate bargain a dying man could make. The earth shook, not just the ground around the well. The whole valley seemed to convulse. A faint blue light burst from the pendant. It was not gentle. It did not feel like grace. It was not a miracle in the clean, beautiful way people imagine miracles. It was violent, like a chemical reaction between my living soul and the filth of the thing that had touched me. The blue light struck the entity. He screamed. Not a sound heard with ears. A force felt in the skull. It made my head feel as if it might split apart. The faces inside his body opened their mouths all at once. His talons tore from my shoulder. Black fluid sprayed across the stones, smoking where it landed. The hands below thrashed and snapped backward into the dark. The entity fell. As it vanished into the depths, the sound that followed was like hundreds of mirrors shattering at once. The pull released me. I hit the ground hard. For a second, I could only lie there, gasping, blood in my eyes, my shoulder burning, my hands still locked around the pendant. Then I ran. I did not look back. Behind me, the forest twisted and snarled. Branches reached like giant arms, clawing at my coat, scraping my face, trying to drag me down. Roots rose from the ground and curled around my ankles. Trees bent toward me, though there was no wind. The path changed again and again, turning me in circles, trying to guide me back to the clearing. But I ran. When my legs failed, I crawled. When my hands bled, I dragged myself with my elbows. Somehow, near dawn, I reached my house. I collapsed on the porch, shaking so badly I could not stand. My hair, which had been dark the day before, had gone gray in the night. Not from age. Not slowly. It changed there in those woods, bleached by terror and whatever piece of death had entered my blood. I was no longer the Ethan people had known. For months after that, I could not speak. Doctors said shock, trauma, damage to the nerves. They had explanations for the wounds, the fever, the broken nails, the torn shoulder, but none for the way my wristwatch still ran backward afterward. None for why the iron pendant had gone cold and cracked down the center. None for why my blood sometimes looked black under bright light. Even now, I cannot look into reflective surfaces, not mirrors, not windows at night, not even a glass of water. Because sometimes, when I forget and my eyes drift toward a reflection, I see movement behind my own face. A skinless grin, a red glow in empty sockets, a mouth forming words I cannot hear but already know. The thing that came back from those woods was not entirely me. I walk, breathe, eat, and sleep, but some part of me never escaped. A piece of my soul is still down there at the bottom of the well of bones, screaming among the others, waiting for something to change, waiting for someone new to come close enough, waiting to trade places. So be careful, son. If you ever find yourself near Slaughter's Valley after sunset, and the trees go quiet, and your watch begins to turn backward, do not follow the path. Do not listen if something calls your name from under the earth. Do not look into the well. The door is still cracked open, and the hunger below never ends. Story 4. On December 4th, 1999, a man in Spain stepped outside his front door and looked up at the night sky. What he saw made him shout something that would end up printed on the front of multiple journals 2 weeks later. Academic circles tore the claim apart. Cheap magazines loved it. The line survived anyway, because it was simple and scary and easy to repeat. His words were, "La luna se está derritiendo," the moon is melting. Dr. Riley Asher stood on a narrow outdoor deck of the Mobile Research Flotation Station, a big boat converted into a floating lab. Everyone on board called it a MRF, like it was a normal thing to live and work on. It had a lab, a kitchen, and cramped sleeping areas that always smelled faintly of disinfectant and old salt water. Riley hadn't volunteered for this. None of them had. Not really. He was one of about 300 scientists who were suddenly invited, meaning ordered, to come to Huelva on Spain's Atlantic coast. They were taken to a plain government building shared by Spain and, judging by the loud American voices and the heavy gear, someone else. Riley never got a straight answer about who else was running the show. He just got a lot of stern looks and instructions. The message, stripped down, was obvious. There's a huge, impossible thing happening in the sky. Figure it out. Later, packed shoulder to shoulder with other researchers in the back of a black truck. Riley had joked that the government was paying them a ridiculous amount of money to explain the big orb. Nobody laughed much. Jokes didn't land well when soldiers were watching you like you might try to escape. Now he was out here, 30 miles from the spot where the lunar drip had touched the ocean. The air was cold and wet. The sea was calm in a way that felt wrong, like the world was holding its breath. "Riley?" A quiet voice pulled him out of his thoughts. "Riley?" A nudge. He didn't turn right away. "Dr. Asher," he corrected automatically, lifting one finger like a teacher. "Remember how our military babysitters told us to address each other?" The sarcasm went right past the woman beside him. She was small, tense, and tired, looking in the way only a person living on caffeine and stress can be. "Right," she said, not interested in arguing. "What were you thinking about?" "What?" "You looked far away," she said. Dr. Priyakar brushed wind-blown hair from her face and stared up into the stars. There it was. Even from this far out, the column of light was visible as a thin, radiant line stretching toward the horizon. It didn't look like a spotlight. It didn't look like moonlight. It looked like the sky had been cut open and something inside it was pouring down. On December 4th, at first, people thought it was an eclipse. But then, the light expanded from the moon itself. Not around it, out of it. And it didn't stop. It grew brighter, wider, and then began to look as if it was dripping downward toward Earth. In the most famous footage, satellite images, shaky aircraft video, clips people recorded on cheap camcorders, you could see it clearly. A bright column reaching from the moon to the Atlantic. It hit the water and seemed to spread, like something connecting the two bodies. Like a tether. And then, in almost every official video the researchers were shown, the same thing happened at the end. A horrible metallic grinding sound. And then, the feed cut to black. Riley swallowed. "The moon is melting," he said, repeating the words like they didn't belong to him. Priya exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath for days. Everyone on the MRF was tense. Multiple research boats were spread out in rings around the column. Some were 25 miles out. Some were 20. A few were scheduled to be placed as close as 5 miles. And one, Riley had been told, was ordered to come within a mile of where the light hit the sea. That thought made his stomach twist. A mile was nothing out here. Priya shifted again. "You're a physicist," she said. "I'm an ichthyologist. And this once-in-human-history event, and we're dragging nets and building an aquarium." Riley stared at the horizon. It's like getting invited to watch God do a magic trick, and they ask you to take notes on the fish. Priya didn't smile. Yes, their silence sat between them like weight. "Dr. Asher." A booming voice made both of them jump. "Doctor?" Eric Feddersen, biologist, Australian, built like someone who could punch a shark and win, stood on the deck holding a compressed bundle of rope and netting. Riley recognized it and groaned. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is. It's exactly what you think it is," Eric said, cheerful in a forced way. "We need to replace the trailing line. You're up. Unless you want Dr. Carr to do it." Both men looked at Priya. She took a quick step back like they'd aimed a weapon at her. "I'll supervise," she offered with a thin smile. Riley and Eric moved to the side railing where the trailing system was mounted. The MRF had several mechanical lines designed to drag nets along the ocean floor. An operator would pull up catches, sort species, record anything strange, and release what didn't matter. Priya's job was to watch for changes caused by the lunar drip, mutations, odd behavior, anything that might suggest the light was doing something to life in the water. So far, it had been boring work, labeling, measuring, filling forms. Riley didn't mind that part. He liked predictable tasks. What he hated was handling wet, heavy equipment on a rocking deck. As Riley tried to loop the new line into place, his hands slipped. Eric laughed. "It's like rigging a fishing rod, mate. Didn't your dad ever take you fishing?" "My dad took me to museums," Riley muttered, fighting the line. They hauled the old line up out of the water. Eric's smile faded. "What the?" He kept pulling. When the net finally surfaced, both men froze. The line wasn't just torn. It was split cleanly down the middle. Not frayed like something snapped it. Divided like someone had sliced it lengthwise with a perfect cut. The net itself was the same. Every part of it, rope, mesh, knots, seemed to have been cut into two mirrored halves. Then the smell hit. It rolled up from the net like a physical thing and punched Riley in the face. Rotten fish and something metallic, like iron, like blood. Riley gagged and grabbed the railing. Even Priya, standing back, covered her nose. "That's not good," Priya said, voice muffled by cloth. "That's dead fish, too much dead fish." She stepped closer, eyes sharp now. "There, what is that?" A dark mass was caught in the torn netting, and the smell was strongest there. It was a tuna, a bluefin, or what was left of one. It had been bigger once. Now it looked like it had been cut and crushed, and the same split ran through it, as if the fish itself had been divided. Except something else was wrong. From the torn section, something pale was growing. Riley squinted. "Does that thing have two heads?" Priya didn't answer right away. Her face had that focused look she got when fear turned into work. "Get a bucket," she said. "Water? Let's bring it inside." Carefully, they carried the fish into the lab and placed it on a stainless table. Under bright lights, it looked even worse. Priya leaned in, calm and clinical, and spoke into a tape recorder. "Specimen appears to be a bluefin tuna. Severe trauma consistent with splitting. On first glance, possible polycephaly." She paused, and Riley followed her eyes. Thin cords of white thread hung from the second head. Not normal flesh, not normal tissue, more like strands, like nerves that had decided to grow outside the body instead of inside it. Priya's voice lowered, uncertain for the first time. "However, the mutation seems more intense. Several nerve-like strands are extending from the second head. That is highly unusual." She set the recorder down and picked up a small scalpel. "Let's begin dissection." The blade touched the joint between the two heads, and instantly, the lab filled with a screeching sound like metal grinding against metal. Priya yelped and jerked back. Blood dripped from her hand. Riley stared. The scalpel had split down the middle, not snapped, split, and from the split, a second blade had formed, cruder, rougher, like a primitive version of the original. That jagged second blade was what had cut Priya. "Jesus," Riley said, his voice thin. "First aid kit." Now, Eric was already moving. "Priya, sit down." As Eric wrapped her hand, Riley couldn't stop looking at the scalpel. It reminded him of the net, the tuna, the clean divide. The same pattern. A copy. Not perfect, but trying. Eric called down the hall. "Hey, Riley, call in an evac. Her hand is bad." Riley made the call. The operator on the other end sounded annoyed, like the ocean was an inconvenience. "It'll take hours," the operator said. "You're far out, double time," Eric snapped, but Riley heard fear under the comm. 2 hours, the operator replied. Then the line went dead. They sat in the infirmary with Priya. Her hand was wrapped in gauze, still bleeding. "How deep is it?" Riley asked. "I don't know," Priya whispered. She stared at her own hand like it didn't belong to her. "It won't stop bleeding." "Shock," Eric suggested. "No," Priya said, and her voice was strange. Not panicked, not even pained. "It doesn't hurt. It just feels heavy." Riley frowned. Heavy? She nodded slowly. Only my arm. Like it's dragging. Riley watched her face and saw something that made him uncomfortable. She didn't look afraid. She looked ashamed, like she'd done something wrong and was waiting to be punished. It reminded Riley of something he'd heard from other researchers. People who watched the footage of the light too long sometimes described a wave of guilt, like looking at it was indecent. The phone rang again. They all flinched. 2 hours, the operator repeated. That's the best we can do. Eric hung up and leaned back against the wall, rubbing his face. We haven't heard from other MRFs, he said. What do you think is happening out there? Riley pulled a small folded map from his pocket and slid it toward Eric. He'd drawn wave lines on it, copied from footage. Before we left Huelva, I talked to another physicist, Riley said. He pointed out something. The wave patterns around the column don't match normal lunar tides. It's not behaving like the moon's usual gravitational pull. Eric stared. So what is it? It means the light has gravity, Riley said quietly. It's not just light. Before Eric could respond, that metallic screeching sound hit again. Louder, they rushed back into the lab. The metal tray holding the tuna had split. The table beneath it had split. The fish's guts spilled across the surface in 2 messy versions. 2 trays clattered to the floor, one cleanly divided, the other a warped imitation. Eric swore. Riley stood frozen. Then, Priya screamed from the infirmary. They ran. Priya's arm, her arm had split open. Blood and bone pooled on the bed and ran to the floor. The cut wasn't like a tear from injury. It looked like something had opened her arm the way the scalpel had opened itself. From inside the wound, pale new bone was growing in thin structures, branching into a malformed second hand. Blood vessels stretched and twisted around it like vines trying to hold a shape. The new hand hung from her like a wrong puppet, barely attached. Priya tried to stand and fell back, slipping in her own blood. She was pale now. Shock had finally arrived, or something worse had replaced it. Riley took 1 step forward and Eric grabbed him hard, stopping him. Don't touch her, Eric said, voice shaking. Don't touch anything. Riley felt faint. A cold sweat broke out on his back. Eric shoved him out of the room. Call another station. Call anyone. Riley grabbed the phone and dialed. Someone picked up, but the line was full of distant, labored breathing, like whoever was there was running or choking. Hello? Riley said. This is Dr. Asher, Station 12. We have an injury and the light, a voice, rasped. What? They're tears, the voice said. Tears for us, Riley's stomach turned. What are you talking about? It's not the end, the voice whispered. It's a garden. The line went silent. In the distance, through the receiver, Riley thought he heard emergency sirens playing over each other. Doubled, echoing, he slammed the phone down and stumbled out onto the outer deck. The column of light was still there. Even from here, it felt like it was watching him. When Riley looked directly at it, guilt flooded him so fast, it made him dizzy, like being caught stealing. Like being caught looking through a keyhole into something private. He forced himself to look away, and the feeling vanished. Riley tested an idea. He folded a piece of paper into a plane and tossed it toward the lab table. The paper touched the fish and split. A rough wooden growth burst from the torn wing, like the copy of the paper didn't fully understand what paper was supposed to be. It tried to rebuild it using something simpler. Riley spoke into the recorder, voice tight. Duplication appears imperfect. It reproduces form but fails to reproduce fine structure, uses crude substitutes. Eric walked out then, lab coat soaked in blood. His face looked empty. I think she's dead, Eric said flatly. Riley stared. You think? I'm not touching her, Eric said. Not even with gloves. It spread. It went up her arm, into her mouth. He swallowed hard. 2 hands, 2 shoulders, 2 tongues. Riley couldn't find words. "We need quarantine," Eric said, like saying it might make it real. "Did you reach anyone?" "No," Riley said. "Not really. I think something happened closer to the light." They were saying nonsense. Eric looked toward the horizon as if he expected the light to move. Riley's voice got sharper. "I don't think help is coming. If they have aerial footage, they know something. That grinding sound on the videos, it's the same sound we're hearing here. The scalpel, the tray, the net. It's all the same thing." Eric tried to breathe through it. "We wait 2 hours. Then we leave." 2 hours passed. No one came. Eric tried the phone again. "Lines are damaged," he said. "Or they're refusing." Panic finally cracked through his toughness. "They can't just leave us out here." Riley walked to the edge of the deck and looked at the water. It didn't look like water anymore. It looked like something that wanted to be touched. He opened the panel by the net mechanism and dropped the latch for the small motorboat. It fell into the sea with a loud splash. Nothing happened. Riley looked at the boat, then at Eric. "I'm going to the next station." Eric grabbed him. "No, we take this back to land." Riley met his eyes. We touched the net. Eric's grip loosened slightly. He looked like a man hearing a sentence he already knew was true. Riley went anyway. He climbed into the motorboat. After a second, Eric climbed in too. They started the engine and headed toward the next MRF. Their station shrank behind them while the column of light grew brighter ahead. Riley spoke into the recorder. "Dr. Asher and Dr. Feddersen are proceeding toward the next station. Dr. Core is deceased due to injuries consistent with the lunar anomaly." He played it back. The recorder echoed his words twice, layered, like the sound itself was splitting. Eric pointed to the water. The waves around them were no longer random. They formed repeating spirals, like a Dina helix rising and falling on the surface. Dark water spawned darker water, wave birthing wave, in a pattern that looked designed. Riley remembered the drawing on the map. It wasn't tide. It wasn't normal gravity. They docked at the next station and climbed aboard. It looked abandoned. Inside, the stench was overwhelming. Dead fish scattered across the floor, split open. Organs draped over counters. Workstations torn into mirrored halves, with rough wooden and plastic imitations of the originals growing out of the splits like tumors. They called out. No answer. In the kitchen, they found writing on the wall, smeared in something dark that looked like blood. "We are sorry. We weren't the right ones. We begin again anew. It's not the end. It's a garden." Riley's throat went dry. That's what the voice said on the phone. Eric scanned the room. "Where is everyone?" Riley pointed. "Boat latch is open." They left. Eric looked like he wanted to believe they went back to shore. Riley didn't. They returned to the motorboat and kept going. The closer they got, the worse everything became. The air thickened into a damp haze that made breathing feel like pulling air through cloth. The ocean smell changed into something rotten and chemical. The water turned greener. Waves whipped in patterns that seemed to repeat, like the sea itself had learned a new rule. Then they saw the debris. Metal spears and broken machinery jutted from the water. In the distance, emergency sirens wailed and warped into doubled, overlapping warnings. It sounded like the stations were screaming at them to leave, but the message couldn't stay whole long enough to be understood. They pulled up to another station. Their boat started to rumble. Screws popped loose. The hull began to split. A bouquet of warped plastic and metal growths burst outward from the crack. They scrambled aboard the station and stared at each other. "We still have one," Eric said, pointing to the station's spare boat hanging over the water. Inside, they followed bloody footprints. 2 sets at first, then a third, smaller one joining. the steps getting stranger as the trail continued. The prints stopped looking human. The blood trail became more like a smear, as if something had been dragged. They heard a whisper. "Please." They froze. "Please." Drip. Something fell in front of Riley's face and splattered on the floor. Not water. Something thicker. The metal where it landed cracked and raised into a scar, like the floor was trying to split and grow. "Help me." The voice wasn't coming from the hall. It was coming from above. Riley looked up and saw a researcher fused to the ceiling like a cocooned insect. Their body was stretched long, twisted through thorns of metal and corded muscle tissue. Underdeveloped limbs grew from cuts like buds. Pale blood dripped from loose veins. Their feet dangled, protruding broken bone. Their eyes were open, wet, desperate. Eric backed up in shock, tripped, and sliced his arm open on a metal spine rising from the floor. He screamed. And then Riley saw what made his stomach drop. The cut in Eric's arm began to split wider, as if the wound itself wanted to become two wounds. A second arm started to push out unnaturally fast. "Riley," Eric gasped. "Get out." Behind them, something heavy shifted. The ceiling thing dropped down in a shower of blood and bone, landing with a wet thud and dragging itself forward. It grabbed at Riley and tore into his side. Riley screamed and kicked until he yanked himself free. A rough cough sprayed blood on the wall. Eric was outside, gripping a rail, staring at his own arm in horror as it began to change. The creature lunged again. It reached Eric first. Riley watched helplessly as bone and metal tore Eric open. Organs spilled onto the deck, some of them strangely doubled, some half-formed. Eric's screams turned into choking gurgles, and then nothing. The thing dragged itself closer to Riley. Slow, but steady. Eric's body hung from it like meat on hooks, impaled on broken vertebrae. Riley clutched his side. He felt something hard pushing against his ribs. A lump forming, an extra rib breaking through, cutting skin from the inside. He could barely speak. "What do you want from me?" The creature stopped at the edge of the deck and turned its face toward the moon. Tears ran down its cheeks. Its posture changed, less like an attack and more like prayer. It raised itself toward the distant light. "I'm sorry," it whispered. Then it collapsed over the rail, falling into the sea. Riley stood shaking, blood soaking his shirt. He saw keys glinting from the creature's pocket, keys to the station's spare boat. He didn't want to touch anything, but he grabbed them anyway. He patched his wound as best he could with whatever supplies he could reach without cutting himself again. He lit a flame to his skin to cauterize, because he didn't trust bandages anymore. He didn't do it because he wanted to live. He did it because he needed to see the light up close. He dropped the spare boat into the water and climbed in before it could mutate under him. Plastic warped at the edges. Screws clicked and popped. He started the engine immediately. As he moved toward the center of the disaster zone, emergency sirens blasted around him, duplicated and layered into nonsense. Warning, warning, dodo not not, approach, approach. He passed the outer ring of broken stations, past twisted helicopters and airplanes that had crashed during the first footage, past sparking wires that had become a forest of metal. The air here was almost unbreathable. The ocean looked poisonous, thick with green and black wave patterns. He jumped out onto the closest wreckage and climbed. Every surface tried to cut him. Wooden spines grew from metal. Plastic split into crude copies. Flesh appeared where it shouldn't. He used the recorder like a guide, pressing playback constantly, checking if his voice doubled or echoed. When it did, he adjusted his route like a man mapping invisible radiation. Finally, he reached the closest station to the light. there were people there, or what was left of them. They knelt on the outer deck like worshippers, like trees rooted in place. Their bodies were twisted and split, extra limbs hanging from messy wounds. Dried blood and seawater coated them. Their faces all held the same expression Riley had seen on Priya right before she died. Shame, Riley climbed higher, hands shredded, both palms pierced by splinters, side burning from the new rib that had become something else, something trying to turn into a hand under his skin. He forced himself to look at the light. The guilt slammed into him like a wave. Not mild discomfort, not embarrassment. A deep, crushing shame that made him feel small and dirty, like the universe itself was judging him for daring to look. But he kept looking. He climbed the final pile of ruined metal and ruined bodies and reached the top, where the light hit the sea. And then, something happened that didn't feel like words anymore. We were meant to be. He didn't hear it with his ears. He felt it inside his bones, like the thought belonged to the ocean and the sky and the light, not to him. The light wasn't just bright. It was new. It was a kind of brightness his mind didn't have language for. It felt like being watched by something older than gravity. Riley saw fish swimming through the wreckage below, splitting and reforming, becoming perfect versions and imperfect versions over and over. Life growing where it shouldn't. Metal turning into gardens of flesh. Plastic becoming wood. Copies trying to become originals. And Riley, standing so close, felt it happened to himself. The extra rib at his side pushed outward until it became fingers. A second hand that grabbed at him, clutched his own body like it belonged to someone else too. His vision doubled. Two sets of eyes took in the light at once. Curious, hungry, guilty, relieved, he tried to scream, but even his voice felt like it wanted to split. And then the last thing he understood clearly was this. The light didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning, like a garden growing out of a wound in the sky. Story 5. I'm terrified. I'm writing this from my phone because my laptop keyboard no longer exists in the way it should. I can see it right in front of me on the desk. It is still there, still black, still dusty between the keys, still carrying the little scratch near the spacebar from where I dropped a mug on it last winter. But when I reach for it, my fingers pass straight through the plastic, not through empty air, through something colder. It feels like dipping my hand into a bowl of frozen mist. There is resistance, but no surface. My fingertips move through the keyboard as if the object is only pretending to be here. I can still see the letters on the keys, but they are not in my time anymore. The keyboard stayed in the past. Literally, I know that sounds insane. I know there is no normal way to write that sentence and make it sound believable. But I need you to keep reading because I do not know how much time I have left. My phone is still solid for now, but it is starting to flicker at the edges. The screen keeps dimming even though the battery is full. Sometimes the words I type appear before my thumb touches the glass. Sometimes they appear after, delayed by a few seconds, like my own message has to travel through broken time to reach me. I do not know when it will slip away, too. My apartment is cracking, not the walls. The walls are still standing, more or less. The paint is still peeling near the ceiling above the kitchen. The picture frame above the couch is still crooked. The hallway still leads to the front door, or at least it should. Everything looks almost normal if I stare without thinking. But it is not the walls that are breaking. It is time. Time itself is crumbling inside my apartment. I first noticed it about an hour ago. I was sitting at my desk, answering an email I had been avoiding all day, when my glass of water flickered. It did not move. It did not fall. It just changed for a fraction of a second. One moment it was on the desk beside my laptop. The next moment I saw two glasses in the same place. One full, one half empty. Then there was only one again. I thought it was my eyes. I blinked hard and rubbed my face. I had not slept well the night before, and I had been staring at screens for too long. That was what I told myself. Then, my hand went through the glass. I reached for it without looking, and my fingers closed around nothing. The glass was there. I could see it. I could see the light catching on the rim. I could see the water trembling inside it. But my hand passed through the place where it should have been. A second later, I felt it. The glass slid into my grip after I had already missed it. I panicked and knocked it over. But even that happened wrong. I saw the water spill before the glass tipped. I heard it hit the desk after it had already rolled to the floor. The sound came late, thick and stretched, like it had been pulled from another room. Since then, everything has gotten worse. I am sitting in the center of my living room now because this is the only place where I still feel close to myself. The floor beneath me is mostly solid. My body still seems to belong to one moment here, though even that is starting to change. Around me, the apartment is splitting into layers: past, present, future. Not separate in clean lines, but folded over each other, like wet pages stuck together in a ruined book. Now does not matter here anymore. Objects flicker silently. My mug is on the coffee table, then it is in my hand, then it is shattered on the floor, then it is back on the table again. The curtains are open, closed, and half torn all at once. The lamp beside the couch keeps switching between standing upright and lying broken, though I have not touched it. To grab anything, I have to move ahead of it. That is the only way I can describe it. If I want to touch something, I have to reach where it will be, not where it is. It is like playing a game with terrible lag, except the game is my own apartment, and every mistake means another part of reality slips away from me. I keep missing. My room has become a low-quality hologram, a haunted recording, a trap with no door. Behind me, only a few steps away, stands another version of me. 5 seconds ago, me. He is frozen near the couch, one hand half raised, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with the same terror I am feeling now. He is not transparent. He is not a ghost. He looks solid, heavy, real. His clothes are mine. His posture is mine. There is even a small dark stain on his sleeve from when the water spilled. At first I thought he was a reflection in something. Then I turned my head and saw another one. And another. There are dozens of me in this room now. Some stand near the desk. Some are sitting on the floor. One is crouched beside the fallen lamp. One is near the kitchen doorway with his head turned toward a sound that has not happened yet. They fill the apartment like mannequins placed there by someone who wanted to study fear from every angle. They do not move. But they are solid. Very solid. I found that out when I tried to get to the window. I thought maybe if I could open it, shout to someone, throw my phone down, anything, I might get help. I crawled toward it, but the past versions of myself were in the way. I had to push through them. Their skin was cold and dry. Not like living skin, not like dead skin either. Something in between. Something emptied of warmth, but not yet allowed to rot. When my shoulder brushed against the shoulder of one of them, I heard a crunch. A dry, unpleasant crack, like an old bone snapping or twigs breaking underfoot. He did not react. His eyes stared straight ahead, unblinking. I nearly vomited. The air around the past version smells wrong. Ozone, like after lightning. Stale sweat. Damp fabric. A faint burnt smell, as if the moments themselves have been scorched around the edges. When I move between them, I can feel their eyes on me. I know they are frozen, but some part of me feels watched. Judged, repeated, all my recent fears standing around me, preserved, every panic, every mistake, every second I failed to escape. The future is worse. Where the front door should be, there is a black void. Not darkness. Darkness still belongs to a room. This is something else. A hole cut into what comes next. I can see the hallway through it, but not the hallway as it is now. The future hallway. 10 seconds ahead. Maybe more. Time is not stable enough for me to measure it properly anymore. In that future layer, the ceiling has collapsed. Chunks of plaster hang in the air, falling forever, but never landing. The light fixture has torn free, and wires dangle like black veins. The walls are cracked open, not physically, but temporally, showing thin slices of other moments behind them. I can see ancient dust drifting from the darkness, though my building is not old enough to hold that much age. A cold wind comes from the void. Grave cold. Cosmic cold. The kind of cold that has never touched sunlight. It carries the smell of old stone, dead stars, and rooms sealed for centuries. When it reaches me, my teeth ache. My skin tightens. The tiny hairs on my arms stand straight up. The walls are vibrating. Not from impact, from anticipation. They know they are going to break. My apartment can feel its own destruction coming, and it is shaking before the blow arrives. I am trapped in a narrow slit between what has already happened and what is about to crush me. Do you understand? I am not inside a room anymore. I am inside a wound in time. The text you are reading, does it look normal to you? Please tell me it looks normal. On my screen, the letters have started overlapping in layers. I type one sentence, and shadows of future sentences appear underneath it before I finish. Some words arrive already crossed out by versions of themselves that have not been written yet. I typed help a few minutes ago, but before my thumb hit the P, a darker copy of the word slid over it and turned into the end. I deleted it. It came back. Not in the text box, in the reflection of the phone screen. My body is no longer whole. My right arm stayed in the past. I can still move it a little, but it is wrong. It feels heavy as cast iron, like I am dragging it through old mud. When I lift it, the movement comes late. I raise my arm, and half a second later, it follows. My fingers are numb, but also aching with a pain that feels like memory more than injury. The skin looks duller than the rest of me, almost gray in certain patches. When I look at that arm, I get flashes of things that happened minutes ago. The glass falling. My hand going through the keyboard. Me crawling backward from the hallway. Me screaming before I understood why. All of it sits inside the flesh like trapped electricity. My left arm is slipping into the future. It has become faint, transparent in places. I can see the bones through the skin when the light hits it. And sometimes there is no skin at all, just a pale outline filled with dust. The fingertips are dissolving slowly, pulled toward the collapsed hallway, toward the moment when the ceiling comes down and everything here becomes debris. I can still use that hand to type, but each letter costs me something. It feels as if my body is being stretched along the axis of time, not pulled apart by ropes, by fishhooks. Tiny invisible hooks in every atom, dragging different pieces of me into different seconds. My ribs feel like they are trying to occupy 3 places at once. My spine keeps flickering between standing, sitting, and falling. My jaw aches with words I have not spoken yet. My teeth hurt with screams from moments that are still on their way. There is a scream in the kitchen. I heard it begin 2 seconds before it happened. It was my voice. I know it was my voice. but my mouth was closed when it started. I sat here, shaking, listening to myself scream from the kitchen. Then the pain hit my chest, and 3 seconds later, I screamed for real. The sound lined up with the echo already happening, and for one horrible moment, I heard both screams together. One from the future, one from me, layered so perfectly that it sounded like two versions of my soul tearing at the same time. This is what I need you to understand. It is spreading. This is not only happening to me. I do not think this started in my apartment. I think my apartment is only where I noticed it. Have you noticed anything lately? Please think carefully. Has your cursor ever frozen a fraction of a second before your hand stopped moving? Not after. Before, like your computer knew what you were about to do before your body did it. Have you seen movement in an empty room from the corner of your eye, only to turn and realize nothing was there, but for just 1 second? Didn't it feel familiar? Like it was you, a moment earlier, leaving behind a trace your mind was not supposed to catch? Have you ever heard your phone buzz and known who was calling before the screen lit up? Not as a guess, but as a memory. Have you ever reached for something and felt it arrive into your hand a little too late? Have you ever stood up too quickly and felt your body remain sitting for one impossible second behind you? These are not hallucinations. It is not stress. It is not exhaustion. Time is not smooth anymore. Maybe it never was. Maybe it was always layers stacked tightly together, and now something is forcing them apart. Maybe every place has past and future versions pressing against the present, and we only survive because the walls between them hold. But the walls are failing. My room is cracking. Your room may be next. Listen to your heart. Please, put your hand on your pulse. Do you feel it? That strange, skipping rhythm? Not just one beat. 2, maybe 3, overlapping each other. One heartbeat slightly ahead, one slightly behind. One trying to stay in the present, failing. I can hear mine now without touching my chest. It is not beating. It is arguing with itself. There is a version of my heart that stopped a few seconds ago. There is a version still racing. There is a version that has not yet realized it is dying. They are all inside me at once. The hallway just collapsed. Not the future hallway, the real one. Or maybe the future reached us. I heard something fall beyond the living room. Heavy, then another sound, smaller, like plaster raining down. Dust rolled across the floor toward me in a gray wave, but some of the dust rose upward instead of falling. Some of it froze in the air. Some vanished before touching the ground. One of the past versions of me near the hallway cracked, his head tilted slightly, though he should not move. A line split across his cheek. Inside, there was no blood, only darkness filled with tiny moving points of light, like stars seen through a broken shell. I think the past versions are not me anymore. Or maybe they are what happens when a moment is forced to last longer than it should. I can hear bones snapping. Some are mine. Some are not yet mine. Some already were. My phone is fading. The bottom of it is transparent now. I can see my knee through the screen. The letters are drifting apart. Words are arriving out of order. I keep trying to fix them, but the corrections appear before the mistakes, and the mistakes hide inside the corrections. The black void at the door is bigger. Something is moving inside it. Not a person, not a creature. A shape made of seconds. It has no body, only outlines of things that used to happen. I can see pieces of my apartment inside it. The desk from yesterday, the broken lamp from tomorrow, my own face from 5 seconds ago, stretched thin and screaming silently. It is coming slowly, because slowly means nothing here. I think it has already reached me. I think I am only waiting for the moment when I notice. My right hand just touched my shoulder. but my right hand is lying on the floor across the room. A past version dropped it. It looks like old wax. My left hand is still typing. Or it will type. Or it typed already. I cannot tell anymore. If this post reaches you, do not ignore the little delays. Do not laugh off the flicker at the edge of your vision. Do not tell yourself you are tired when your reflection moves half a second after you do. Leave the room. Leave now. Do not pack. Do not turn off the lights. Do not look back at the place where you were standing. Because if you see yourself there, even for a moment, it means the crack is opened. And if you hear knocking from a door that is already open, do not answer. That is not someone outside. That is the future asking to come in. The ceiling above me is bending. The plaster is stretching downward like soft skin. The past versions of me are turning their heads now. One by one. Slow, crunching, their dead eyes are finding me. I can hear them breathing, though none of them should breathe. They are all opening their mouths. I think they are going to scream before I do. No, they already did. I hear myself in every corner. I hear the hallway falling. I hear my bones separating into seconds. I hear my mother calling from a phone call I missed 3 years ago. I hear tomorrow's silence. My pulse is splitting. The screen is almost gone. Please listen. Your room is cracking. Your heart knows it. I hear something falling in the hallway, even though the hallway is no longer there. I hear footsteps from yesterday. I hear my own snapping bones. I hear the future breathing through the door. I hear, story 6. Staring at the answer filled me with a feeling known as horror. Perhaps I wanted to know the truth, some debt of never knowing who was smiling at me as they walked by, some collateral of cruelty that had haunted me just behind the eyes of every stranger. I was trapped in places I felt safe, unable to leave privacy, because out in the world, in public, anyone might be hunting me. And before that moment, I had never known why, or what I had done to make someone dedicate their life to finding me and killing me. Really, it wasn't my fault, and perhaps that is why I wasn't killed. When Erwina fell during the free skate with When I Come Around by Green Day blaring throughout the entire nightmare, I stopped myself from taking a piece off her, throwing myself down and wrecking my right knee. To this very day, I walk with a cane. I was walking with a cane and a limp my whole life, all through high school and beyond. I never forgot that day. I loved skating. It was where I went to get perspective and relief from life's burdens and mysteries. Skating was flying. It was freedom. It was where I could let my emotions leave my body and give me peace. Not when Erwina fell and the Montgomery boys rolled over her hair and fingers with their inline skates. The rollerblades severed her thumb and ruined her hand, and tore a large chunk of her hair from her scalp, skin and all, spraying blood everywhere. Then, Parker landed on her as he tripped over her, and her neck was broken by his weight. She spent 6 weeks in the hospital on life support before something insurance pulled the plug on her. I recall seeing Babbitt and Erwina's brother Regi at the funeral. My understanding is that her father was missing. Regi, I last heard, had gone to live at that uncle's ranch, or gone to a mental institution, or maybe both. People who were there, like Charlie, mouth gaping, holding the drinks he'd bought for himself and her, or Candace, Erwina's, didn't show up for some reason. Half the school was there, but they seemed to forget. Everyone forgot over the decades that followed. I never forgot, but the Montgomerys went on to college and eventually took over their father's used car dealership. Parker had a different life, living as the guy who killed Erwina, and I didn't know what happened to him. He was homeschooled after that, And it was only years later when I found out he was one of the victims of the DSS killings in the early 2010s. Except it turned out he was only coincidentally one of the victims. What really happened, according to Agent Vargas of the FBI, is Parker was found tortured and killed by Erwena's mother. He said, and I quote, "Patty, you should sign this, we can put you into witness protection until we catch Babbitt. She has killed 5 people already, plus we are sure she killed Parker, and we think she's looking for you." According to the FBI, Babbitt was suspected of becoming a serial killer after her daughter's death. She had degloved all the skin from the body of Mr. Montgomery and a health insurance agent and a life support technician and the owner of the roller skating rink and one of the Montgomery boys, all within 10 years of her daughter's death. They weren't sure, but they also believed she might have killed at least 2 more as well, including Parker and the DJ who had worked at the roller skating rink. Parker was shot and then stabbed 157 times, and the DJ was run over 5 times and then clubbed with a tire iron, while the last 2 happened later and didn't fit the MO of the original 5 killings. They seemed personal, and Babbitt was already under investigation at the time of her last 2 victims. There was this feeling of guilt and awfulness that had stayed with me since that day. I had loved Erwena. She used to make fun of my braces, but she was always playful about it, and if anyone else picked on me, she'd defend me. I had always looked up to her like she might secretly be my older sister. When I heard about her death, my recovery halted, and the doctors couldn't understand how my leg got worse, and to this day I still walk with a cane, and every step I take reminds me of losing her. Refusing to sign, with my eyes watering at the horror of the roller skate scalping of 95, I just shook my head. How had they reduced her to the sick phrase, the sensational reference to a tragic moment? Somehow it dehumanized her more than the boys rolling over her hair and hand. The older Montgomery boy was the one whose rollerblades had her hair tangled in the wheels. Why was he still alive? The agents must have read something in my expression. I didn't have to say anything for them to switch to elicitation tactics. You think you're safe because Montgomery is the one who rolled over her first and he's still alive. But that doesn't bother you, that he's not dead yet. I just want Erwena back. I don't care what happens to him. If I sign that, it's like I am agreeing to call what happened to her the roller skate scalping of 95. Where'd you even find this? It's from a fringe magazine that follows FBI investigations. You'd be surprised that they actually have insight about some of our cases. You read this? I asked importunately. They glanced at each other, exchanging a look I interpreted to mean she has us there. Damn. I let out an aggressive chuckle and stood with effort, my leg threatening to give out from under me. No amount of healing or therapy had fixed it from the fall. It had just kept getting worse. I winced at the pain, but tried not to let it show. Maybe you should go see your old classmate, Montgomery. Might give you a different perspective. Agent Sommers slid a card across the table with their number on it, in case I changed my mind. We'll have these papers waiting for you, if you change your mind. If you see anything, if you see Babbitt, call the police immediately. There's a warrant for her arrest that she's evading. Somehow, she's probably a bag lady. Who reads this magazine of yours? I told them. They gave each other the same look they already had, as though they had already heard that profile. When they were done with me, I took their advice. I went to go and see what had become of the last Montgomery. Finding that he rarely left his office except to go to his fortified home, it was no wonder Babbitt couldn't get to him. What surprised me was that the dealership was just down the street, well within view of the derelict roller skating rink. When I was finally able to get to see him, I saw he had an automatic pistol on his desk, and the windows in his office were tinted and made from a thick custom glass. Judging by his office door being more secure than the cockpit of a commercial airline, I presumed the glass was bulletproof. He was also wearing a life-protecting vest that made his already bulging frame under his cheap blue suit more inflated. I glanced at the board he spent his time on, tracking murders over the last 30 years. There's a lot more than 5 or 7, I noticed. What do you want, Patty? He gestured to where my photo sat next to his and a blank index card that said Reggie. I spoke with the FBI. They suggested I come and see you. They are trying to convince me I should sign away my freedom to the U.S. Marshals or some such. Yeah, I wouldn't sign either. The killer is among us. Montgomery stated with paranoia in his voice. I felt a chill. You have over 20 victims up on your map. I counted. Who were the rest? Employees of the roller skate rink, the hospital, Erwina's estranged father, 2 other classmates of ours. All of them died from murder. The FBI knows about them, as well as some witnesses and bystanders who also got murdered, following the other murders. I have kept track of all of it by watching the obituaries, the news, doing my own research. They think it is Babbitt, I said. No, it is someone else. Someone stronger and meaner. But all of the main victims she invited to a dinner and showed up, she said she'd forgiven everyone. That was just a year after Erwina's death, Montgomery explained. So that just leaves you, me and the brother. I realized. Reggie went to live on his uncle's ranch, but after the uncle died, he spent 2 years in a mental hospital. That ended at the same time as the killings that involved skinning the victims ended. So I doubt it could be him. He's monitored and on medication. But why? I asked. He looked puzzled for a moment, and I added, why is he monitored and on medication? There's this doctor, this wacko therapist they call Dr. Sweet. He was some kind of German scientist people thought was involved in World War II stuff, but there's no way it's true anyway. He was obsessed with Reggie and has him in a special rehabilitation program. Some top secret stuff that even I cannot find details about. I told those agents, but they said it had nothing to do with the killings. The guy's alibi is Dr. Sweet saying he was in the hospital the whole time. And what if he wasn't? I asked. Montgomery looked perplexed. I don't know. I hadn't really thought of that. Erwina was a really great older sister. I added, hearing the way I said it. It felt true. It felt natural. I had loved her very much. I wasn't sorry for the killings, and she wasn't even my sister. Yeah, believe me, I've had a long time to regret what I've done. I've lived my whole life like I'm in some kind of prison, except worse. It's like I am on death row, and the execution will come at any hour of any day, and it will be horrible. What about the roller skate rink? I asked. It's all boarded up, condemned. Why? I think I am going to go back there. I'd like to have a look, I said. Montgomery looked like he wanted to ask why, but stopped himself. Nobody had the answers, and his conversation with me had given us both ideas. Yeah, he said. Maybe I will come with you. It's the least I can do. We've both felt hunted by whoever is doing this for a long time. I acknowledged. We both feel guilty about it. That's true. Montgomery sighed. I don't want to live like this. I just never go out. You've locked yourself in. It isn't Babbitt, and it cannot be Reggie. So that means anybody could be an assassin. Montgomery spoke my world. I nodded. I stood up and took my cane. He collected his automatic pistol. We opened the door and stepped outside into the bright summer day, with the quiet of the car dealership as a salesman walked by, avoiding looking at us. I asked, shall we? As we walked there, I wondered if maybe Reggie had somehow killed the 5 victims who were skinned while he was supposedly locked up under Dr. Sweet's care. That might mean someone else was also involved, and why the FBI was only tracking 7 of the murders. two murderers over the course of many years, striking in the summer heat on brief killing sprees, returning again and again to slash at anyone involved. We reached the boarded-up roller skate rink, with graffiti and grass giving it a strangely colorful look, despite the peeled and faded yellow paint. Montgomery noticed the boards in one of the doors kicked out and crawled in first. With difficulty, I crawled in after him, and in the dark, we shuffled around. Should have brought a flashlight. Montgomery coughed on the dust. Before I could respond, we heard someone moving around in the dark. I called out, but there was no response. As we rounded a corner, we found a sort of murder shrine. Human skins from a lot more than 5 victims were hung and stretched to form an enclosure. At the center was a glowing altar with pictures of Erwina. Holy shit, I wheezed. Montgomery drew his pistol, but before he could switch off the safety, someone rolled up to him on the dirty floors on skates and struck him on the side of his head. He fell, and the gun clattered along the floor. I screamed in panic, moving as fast as I could, but dropping my cane, fleeing to the back of the rink, with the killer between me and the entrance. I was trapped. I heard the gun get checked and cocked, and then flashes of thunder blasted ricochets in my direction. I had to get out, but there was no way I could hobble out. I pushed myself into the corner, sobbing in terror, but my hands caught on laces. I felt around in the dark and found a pair of skates. Gasping, I quickly realized my luck and took off my shoes and tried them on. Somehow, they were my size exactly. I laced them up as I heard the killer rolling around, cackling as they swung the metal pipe they were wielding. As I listened, I realized there were 2 of them, coordinating their movements as they searched for me in the gloom. I got to my feet, shakily, and oriented myself towards the entrance. I heard police sirens, responding to someone reporting the gunshots and screams. At least I hoped they were coming to save me. I first had to get outside, otherwise I'd be killed before they could arrive. I began rolling and soon picked up speed. They heard me and started closing in, and I heard the gun click empty and go whirling past me in the darkness, thrown, racing ahead of them. My knee wasn't hurting for some reason. I could see Erwina's smile as she joked about my braces, a childhood memory. I knew, somehow, that she was with me. I went faster, confident I could make it. They were just behind me as we reached the step, and I guessed exactly where it was. Both killers were on skates and missed the step as I jumped and lowered my body, rolling off the momentum. They tumbled and dropped their weapons, groaning at the impact on the floor. I made it to the door and exited to the parking lot, moving aside with my hands up as the police aimed their weapons. "Don't shoot me. There are 2 killers in there," I shouted as they were telling me to get on the ground. I rolled further to the side and ducked down, just as a man and a woman, dressed in filthy rags and carrying the metal pipe and a knife, crawled out. They were completely feral and didn't listen as the police were yelling at them to drop their weapons. Instead, I looked and saw, with recognition, Candace and Charlie, or what was left of them. As they neared me to finish me on the ground, ignoring the police, bullets started hitting them. They stood for a moment, getting reversed on their skates as they took hits, and as they rolled backwards, I saw the candlelight vigil that never-ended fade from their eyes. Later, I watched as Montgomery was wheeled out on a stretcher. He was partially conscious. I said to him, "It's over. They got both of them." But he shook his head weakly and said, "It never ends."